So welcome today on this Wednesday, November 10th. I'm Dawn Ellis-Mobbs and I'm the Education Manager with Room 217. And the topic for our webinar today is Pulse Music Media, Intersections of Music and Health, with two very special guests, Dr. Andrew Ascenzo and Dr. SarahRose Black. We're going to go over just a few housekeeping items at the beginning. Today's webinar will last for an hour and will include a 5 or so minute question and answer session at the end. And if you'd like to ask SarahRose or Andrew some questions, feel free to use the chat function at the bottom of the screen. But first, a little bit of information about what's going on at Room 217. And as you know, on the second Wednesday of every month, or maybe you don't know, we offer a webinar series. And so upcoming on December 8th, you can go online at musiccare.org after this webinar and sign up for the next one, which is Right to Music with Dan Cohen. And again, there's no shortage of updates. We'd like to take a moment and talk to you a little bit about our Musiccare Learn community. So since October, we have launched Musiccare Learn, which really anyone can become a member of. The Musiccare Learn area is the central hub and heartbeat to resources and programs ready specifically for you. Musiccare Learn is listed under the program section on our website. And it is a place to enrich your care through a variety of modules designed specifically to make you shine in your Musiccare skills. We have 8 different core programs, which I'll talk about in a moment. And it provides you a window to research papers, journals, and other evidence-based research, along with all of our past webinars that you can find on our Musiccare Learn Hub. And this is a membership program that you can access. And again, how you can connect is by going under programs, selecting Learn, and look at the membership. And membership will provide you access to all these resources and our 8 core programs, which you see here, at a discounted price. And in addition to the 8 core programs at a discounted price as a Learn member, you'll also get access to our brand new Musiccare Connect app. And we're very excited about this. Our app gives you access to Room 217 music and programming 24/7. Again, if you go to our website, musiccare.org, you can find out more about Learn and about Connect, but you can also download our Connect app at the Apple iStore or at Google Play. And on part of our Learn community, one of the programs we offer is virtual learning studios. And coming up in November, we have Music and the Developing Brain, as well as the much anticipated Bells for Care, which you can ring into the Christmas holidays, I guess you could say. And alongside is our training. We offer a 3-phase of Musiccare training. It's our standard training. We have level 1, level 2, and level 3. Again, more information at musiccare.org. But upcoming, we have a level 2 training on November 19th and 20th. And for those of you that are interested in level 1, there's an upcoming training in January. But now I guess you could say we're ready for the main event. So who do we have with us today? Dr. Andrew Ascenzo is a recent graduate of the Doctor of Musical Arts program at U of T's Faculty of Music, where he is currently a professor of cello performance with research interests in repertoire for solo, cello, and electronics. In addition to his work as a performing artist, Andrew is a composer, a producer, as well as an audio and video engineer. He's the recipient of the Tecumseh Sherman Rogers Graduating Award, a top honor awarded to a graduate of the Faculty of Music. He performs in Canada and internationally as a soloist and as a member of the Bedford Trio, an award-winning classical piano trio currently in residence at U of T. And Dr. SarahRose Black is a certified music therapist, registered psychotherapist, an educator and researcher specializing in palliative care and psychosocial oncology at Princess Margaret Cancer Center and Kensington Hospice in Toronto. She's a pianist, a vocalist, a music health educator, and she's performed, taught, and presented on her clinical work and research across Canada. SarahRose is on faculty at Wilfrid Laurier University's Music Therapy Department and currently services as the editor-in-chief of the Canadian Journal of Music Therapy. She lectures regularly at U of T's Faculty of Music and Medicine. And a little bit more about their session today. So the intersections of music and health. Pulse Music Community is a creative collective built for online and live performances, conversations, storytelling, and idea sharing about the intersecting worlds of music performance, music therapy, and music and health. So we're glad to have you here today, and we can't wait to learn more.
Thank you so much for the beautiful introduction, Dawn and Tanya, and we're just so pleased to be here with the Room 217 community. And on behalf of Andrew and myself, welcome and good afternoon. Before we begin, I would like to share a story, but before I do that, I would like to gently invite you all to consider the fact that my stories often have to do with serious topics related to cancer care, end-of-life care, and palliative care. If this feels like a tender subject for you, I'd like to just invite you to notice your own reactions. If you need to pause, if you need to step away, if it feels too intense, please just take care of yourself as you listen to this story. And I invite you to just be extra careful and gentle with yourself. So on that note, I'd like to begin. I want you to imagine a hospital room. It's 9 a.m. The year is 2016. Medically assisted dying is legal, but it is not common. In that hospital room, I'd like you to imagine a hospital bed, and in it a man, John, 45 years old, diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. Breathing is difficult but manageable. Pain medicines have been an ongoing source of comfort and support, but the side effects of fatigue and drowsiness have left him weary. Next to his bed is me and my keyboard. I'm a music therapist. I have been working with John for 2 weeks, using relaxation techniques, live music at bedside, and supportive psychotherapy to provide care as John has been preparing for his medically assisted death. Our time together is coming to an end because he has scheduled his assisted death for today at 10 a.m. But he has been refusing pain medicine. He worries that the medicine will make him too drowsy to consent to the procedure, and he feels he can hold off. It's now 9:30. We receive the news that the doctor who is coming to perform the procedure is delayed. John asks me to stay with him and asks me to play. The music will keep me focused. It will be more effective than the pain medicine, and it won't make me drowsy, he tells me. The nurses and I gently follow his lead, but encourage him to consider some morphine if he begins to become uncomfortable. Nope, just music, he says firmly. I begin to play. It's 10:15. I play as family and friends come to say their goodbyes. I play as nurses come in to offer support and comfort. I play as John's wife curls up on his bed next to him and shares memories of their early life together, the birth of their daughter, their travels, their memories. It's 12 p.m. The staff apologized to John. The doctor is still delayed. His estimated time of arrival, 2 p.m. We all worry about John. John looks at me. I know it's a lot, but can you keep playing? I nodded. Of course. I witnessed John's final hours while providing the backdrop, the soundtrack, the acoustic accompaniment of music, both familiar and improvised as John prepared to die. I played Leonard Cohen and I sang, "There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in." I sang it over and over again, knowing these words were some of John's favorite, his most reassuring. Music held the space for John. Music was the medicine. At 2 o'clock, Dr. Fraser walks in and everyone breathes a sigh of relief. My knees buckle. John reaches for my hand. This is the first time I have stopped playing in over 4 hours. Can you stay? Can you play me through this? Of course, John. After the usual protocols and paperwork, John nodded to me. Play Hallelujah, okay? An anthem. I'll be right here, John, I say. I slowly arpeggiate G major and E minor. John's eyes closed as his veins filled with medicine, and I sing, That's How the Light Gets In. John's family held each other as he stopped breathing. Time of death, 2:32 p.m., the doctor said quietly. Thank you all for being here with him. I exhaled and I quietly left the room. Months later, I was sitting in a coffee shop on a rainy Saturday with a friend, and this opening riff of Jeff Buckley's Hallelujah started playing over the loudspeaker. My friend, a palliative care doctor, looked at me. Everyone has a story about this song. Why do you think that is? I don't know, I asked. I said, maybe it's just one of those songs that tells everyone's story, no matter what their story is. Maybe, he nodded. I thought of John. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in.
If you're hearing this story for the first time, I want you to take a moment and recognize how it makes you feel. I remember the moment that I heard this story for the first time. Actually, I read that story for the first time. And that was the moment that the idea of pulse struck me like a bolt of lightning. I have to say that hearing that story today, years later, it still has such an impact on me every time I hear it. I remember the day that story happened. Actually, we were en route to a rehearsal. SarahRose was in the passenger seat and I was driving, and we were on our way to a rehearsal for a musical that I was music directing, and SarahRose had kindly agreed to step in as rehearsal pianist for that evening's rehearsal. And I know how hard that can be after a long day of work at the hospital. And this particular day, we were chatting and things felt a little bit heavy in the car. And I asked her, I said, how was your day? Did you have a long day? Was today a difficult day? And she said, yeah, it was very difficult. But she didn't want to talk about it. She just said, at some point we'll talk about it and I'll tell you the story. She ended up writing about it and she sent it to me. And for some reason, I didn't read it right away. I don't know why. It was early on in our marriage, actually. I think it was just past our 1-year anniversary. And I'd heard quite a bit about her work, and I've heard a lot of stories, and some days they were just too heavy. And I for some reason, didn't feel like reading this story right away. So I, put it away in my email and said, I'll read it someday. Fast forward 2 years. Now I'm in Ottawa with my piano trio. I'm there for Chamberfest, this great festival. And there was this one evening I was sitting alone in my hotel room, getting ready for a performance the next morning. And I put my cello away. I was taking a break. And for some reason, this story came back to me. And I thought, I need to read this. It's been way too long. I haven't read this story. And I know it's had quite an impact on SarahRose. So I read this story, and then I sat in the room in silence for about 15 minutes after reading it. I cried. And then I called SarahRose and I had to tell her how much this story had impacted me. And I couldn't believe it took me 2 years to read it, but it did. And I was so glad that I did. And I had this sudden realization that these stories, which I had been hearing for years, and I always kind of thought they were sad stories filled with loss. And it suddenly hit me that these aren't sad stories. Of course, they're emotional. Of course, they are sad in their own way. But these are actually stories about people having moments of great healing, of great joy, and of incredible connection at a time that's probably more difficult than many of us here can even imagine. They're powerful stories of love and connection, and music is the thing that makes these moments possible in what we may think are some of the darkest moments that people can go through. So I thought to myself, I can't be the only person hearing these stories. The world needs to hear these stories. They need to be shared. I didn't know how, I didn't know what it looked like, but I knew that we had to do something to tell the world about the power of music therapy and the power of music. We hear that phrase a lot, the power of music. And I think we've all probably experienced it on a personal level, the power of music, whether it's at a concert or listening to a song. But hearing about it in SarahRose's work as a music therapist in cancer care, I thought this was a whole different level of exploring and sharing the power of music. This brings me into a story about myself. It's not so much a story as where I was at the time as a musician. As Dawn mentioned in the introduction, I am a professional cellist. I play with a piano trio. I freelance and I gig and I play with all kinds of orchestras and groups around Toronto mostly. And at the time I was doing my doctorate in cello performance, researching music for cello and electronics. And of course I had spent many years playing the classics of the cello repertoire, Beethoven and Bach and Brahms and all this beautiful music. But the thing that was on my mind and had been on my mind for years is, what is my value in the world as a cellist? I'm playing this incredible music, but so is Yo-Yo Ma. So is Sheku. So all these amazing cellists that already exist in the world that are so incredibly popular, so incredibly talented. They're already doing it. What am I doing adding my music to the world? It's just another version. Is there really value in that? And I was really questioning my value as a professional musician. And I was having a really hard time seeing a career path for myself playing this music. We often talk about connection as musicians. And if you ask most musicians, why are you doing what you do? The answer is often because I want to connect with people. And I just couldn't find a way to do that. But when I heard these stories from SarahRose, when I heard her stories by the bedside, I knew that there was suddenly a new way to connect with people. I knew that we could use these stories to give context to music, to give context to music in healthcare settings, to give context to this music as a powerful tool for other people to go through these moments of connection and joy and love. And then we could pair SarahRose's storytelling with my music performance and our music performance. And suddenly the idea for Pulse was born. And then I had a chance to actually answer the question for myself, why do I do what I do? To connect with people. And this was how I was going to do it. And this is how we were going to do it.
The more Andrew and I discussed our work in these individual, though very intersecting fields, the more we realized how much crossover there actually was between the world of music performance, particularly classical performance, but not limited to. We also realized the extreme potential for enhancing each other's fields. I felt I could learn so much as a music therapist from the world of performance and glean so much for my own clinical work. And Andrew commented in the same way that he felt there was a lot he could take from the theory and the practice of music therapy. And we questioned, what else can we learn from each other and what happens when we converge? So for some general context, I'd like to just give you an introduction to what music therapy is. In a nutshell, I like to share that music therapy has three parts. Music, whether live or recorded, though I'm 95% of the time using live music. The therapeutic relationship that I have between myself and the clients or the patients I provide care for. And the clinical goals that we focus on. So music, the relationship, and the goals. And these clinical goals are the basis of my role in the healthcare system. Things like managing anxiety, depression, stress, physical symptoms, overall relaxation and comfort, emotional support, etc. As shared in the earlier story, end of life care, be that a quote unquote natural death or an assisted death, etc. And I typically do bedside work. I'm at a residential hospice, as Dawn mentioned, and at Princess Margaret Cancer Center, both in Toronto. But music therapists work in any and all sectors, including in the community, in private practice. Anywhere where you find people requiring healthcare, I like to think there's potential for a music therapist. And so we were eager and totally inspired to converge and connect with people and share ideas with live audiences, with broader audiences. So we started to brainstorm, how can we A, perform together, and B, share stories of music and health from my practice at the bedside, but infuse those stories with a very specific type of performance. So we've collaborated with all kinds of different artists to do this. But that initial vision took a little bit of time to develop. But once we sat down and said, we want to share these two worlds colliding and connecting, it really flowed. So we developed a live show which was rooted in both stories and performances with clear linkages between the two. And we were so excited to initially change the way people listen to music, because that was such a big part of our experience. I changed the way I listened to music as a result of the patients I worked with. And Andrew shared the same thing. He felt he heard music differently in a new way because of these stories. And so we developed this live show to introduce this concept to live audiences. Now, this is October 2019, this particular slide, one of our very first formal performances at the Canadian Opera Company. And we'd like to show you a brief clip from this performance.
Our bodies begin with music. The first drummer that we ever encounter is our mother. A perpetual drum beat is one of the first sensations experienced in utero, even before birth. And this function of our physiology perpetuates life, and this drum, this musical instrument, our heart, accompanies us, no matter what life brings us or where life takes us. Our heart rate, this embedded metronomic pulse, adapts and shifts as we experience highs and lows, excitements and disappointments, joy, fear, and intensity, and serenity.
And so we began with this concept of music as health. And we integrated a sonic backdrop, music. We actually sang a Bob Dylan song to accompany that particular story. We started with the principle of music and health based in my education and my practice. And the rest of the performance was infused with various selections from the classical world, from opera. I sang some pop tunes, and you'll hear a little bit at the end of something that was very audience participation heavy. And so, as I mentioned, October 2019, we're so excited. We gear up. We have a great attendance. We went on to perform for the next 3 or 4 months. So you'll see us at the Toronto Public Library. We did a series there with the Canadian Opera Company, where these events, free of charge, invited people to come and listen to stories of music and health and live performances, again, featuring principles of what it means to use music in healthcare, not just as a music therapist, but as an everyday person going about their time in the world and using music to enhance and increase their quality of life. We also performed, you'll see at Union Station, similar styles where we would tell stories and we would backdrop them with performances that fit the stories. And so we were very privileged to be able to perform in different settings. I loved being at Union Station because of the hustle and bustle of the commuter traffic, and people would stop and listen and be captivated by the fact that there was live music in a really busy space. And again, we were hoping people would change and shift the way that they listened to music. And I think we had some great momentum, but as we all know, we're creeping towards March of 2020, at which point we had to shut down all our live performances.
So as SarahRose said, March 2020 came in just as we're gaining momentum. And I think from March 3rd to March 12th or March 9th, actually, I had 7 performances. And I think back to that week, and I had 7 separate performances, and all the audiences that got together for those performances right before the whole world shut down for COVID is quite incredible to think about. But the thing that happened to us, obviously we had upcoming performances and they all got canceled as well. So both of us were sitting at home those first 2 weeks of COVID. And naturally, we're thinking about both of our individual careers and what's going to happen to them and how we're going to adapt to this new reality. And then we started thinking about Pulse. Of course, it wasn't called Pulse yet. This was just our music and health, music and well-being initiative. And we started to have this idea that, well, maybe we can just take what we've been doing and use the momentum that we've gained and take this whole project online. One of my good friends has been putting videos on YouTube in a totally different industry, but I sort of watched him grow and watched him build an audience and a community. And I thought, well, we can do the same thing. There aren't that many people doing this in the music and health space. So let's get on YouTube and let's start telling these stories and sharing them with the world at a time when we can't be together. And, connectivity is limited to seeing each other through screens and through Zoom like we are now. Let's do our best to continue to share these stories. Our videos began last July, this is July 2020, and we followed a format early on of going back and forth talking about a topic. I would talk a little bit about the music. SarahRose would talk a little bit about the connection to the music and health world. She would then share a story, and then we would feature a performance that was filmed live of the piece that video was about. We slowly started to branch out and experiment with some different ideas. We had some guests on, and the video that we're going to share with you now is a clip from something we called the Art of Improvisation. This was an idea we had based on some of SarahRose's stories from her job, where patients would tell her a story about them, whether it's about their day or a life experience they had or their family, and she would accompany these stories live in the moment with music. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we did a video on that exact same thing? So what we did, I wrote a story. I didn't tell her the story. If she didn't read it ahead of time, I wrote it, I recorded it, and then I spaced it out so it took place over about 6 minutes. And you'll see in this video, you won't see that she has a headphone in her left ear, but she was listening to the story live in her left ear as she was improvising on the piano. And then I filmed some various scenes around our neighborhood to try and illustrate and accompany the story. So everything you're seeing is improvised, and SarahRose was hearing it for the first time. And then we filmed this video that we called The Art of Improvisation, and in an attempt to mimic what might be a real life music therapy session with a patient. So we hope you enjoy this video. The dew on a leaf in the morning. That's the first thing that comes to mind. I always thought that was so refreshing. I used to walk to work every day. It didn't matter what the weather was, but the fall was always my favorite season. Late fall, actually, when the last of the leaves were falling from the trees. You could feel the change in the air. I would start early, before most other people. I loved being alone on the sidewalks. I loved the quiet of the empty streets in my neighborhood. I would always cut through the park. I loved the way the trees looked as they changed colors and eventually lost all of their leaves. I always thought there was something special about watching nature prepare for months of hibernation. It was like the trees and the earth were taking a long nap, recharging for another summer that seemed like an eternity away. Then there was the bridge. I had to take the bridge to cross the valley, but I never got tired of it. It never ceased to amaze me. It always felt so majestic to walk across the bridge, hundreds of feet above the valley, carrying cars, cyclists, the subway, and me. It connected my neighborhood to the city, and you could see and hear the city come to life from that bridge. After that, nothing really mattered. I fell into the hustle and the bustle of the city, and the rest of the day was just a blur. I can't even think of anything important about it that I would want to share with you right now. It was as if I walked over the bridge into an abyss, but that didn't matter. I always knew I would wake up the next morning to see the dew on the leaf again and start a new day. I can't begin to tell you what I would give to see that dew on the leaf just one more time. So that was a video we called The Art of Improvisation. There is an introduction to that, but it was a little long to show today. And funny enough, that was filmed and premiered just over a year ago. I think it was November 4th, 2020. So just around the same time of year. So I thought that was pretty cool to show something that we did almost exactly a year ago. But that's how we started to shift into online content. And from there, we began to kind of shift into other ideas as well. As this next slide says, broader points of connection through music. So we started to arrange and record different types of music, not strictly classical music. So we started looking at movie music, TV scores, popular music. We started bringing in more guests to talk about their experiences in music and well-being, and just sort of broadening the type of music that we were using to connect with people. Now, I said earlier that a lot of musicians, when asked about why they do what they do, specifically classical musicians, their answer will often be to connect with audiences. And too many times I see this over and over again, that that's the answer, but then they fall into this same sort of trap that educational institutions, performing arts institutions, all kind of set up for us. It all goes back to the stage and the concert and the recital and the same repertoire and the same style of presentation. And we started to think, why can't we do something different? You know, why can't we do something to connect with people using music and using these stories that aren't from our classical music institutions? Why can't we get more on everybody's kind of everyday level and tell stories to give context and actually connect with people's everyday lived experience? And we started broadening out, and it's grown quite a bit. And I'm going to pass it off to SarahRose to talk a little bit more about that as well, and music as health behaviors.
Thanks. It was fascinating to hear people's reactions to our branching out and to these videos, because at the end of the day, every single one of us has what we like to call a musical autobiography, a musical history. Every single one of you on this webinar today has a musical history. And I love dispelling the myth that not everybody is musical, because in fact, everybody is. If you think back to our clip that we showed where Andrew was emulating a heartbeat on the guitar, and I talked about the power of the mother's heartbeat as the first drummer we ever meet. You are born into sound and music. So inviting people to share their stories, whether we had guest artists or we heard comments and feedback from the communities we were connecting to, felt really rich and really organic and really true to how our mission statement was evolving. And it was really exciting for us.
So
yeah, go ahead.
In December of 2020, as we started branching out a little bit, I was really interested in turning this into kind of a larger business for us, something I saw us doing long-term, continuing to share music in all kinds of different ways and just continue experimenting. And I was listening to a lot of podcasts and reading a lot about how to develop a creative idea into something more tangible and something that, you know, you can do more long-term, and how to continue connecting with people in new creative ways. And people seem to be shouting from the rooftops, get on TikTok now. Forget Facebook, forget Instagram, get on TikTok. You can grow on TikTok. And I thought, well, that's interesting. But what can a cellist do on TikTok other than just play some music? And so I tried to think of my little TikTok gimmick. And then we did get on TikTok. And I had this idea of using my looping pedal, which is, it's a guitar pedal that records what you play live. And when you hit it again, it continues to loop the thing or the phrase that you play over and over, and you can stack these different layers. So I thought to myself, wouldn't it be cool, just as a little fun experiment, if I made a Pulse account on TikTok and started sharing some looping things that I arranged and see if people like it. And as it turns out, they did like it. And that's been great. And it's been a really interesting journey on TikTok, because I've had to ask myself the question dozens of times, what the heck does this have to do with Pulse Music Media and music and well-being? And as SarahRose mentioned, this is part of our growing and evolving mission statement. That is not just about sharing stories of music and health and stories from music therapy, but it's actually about getting people to connect with music on many different levels. And as SarahRose would say, using music as a health behavior. And now this is one of my favorite phrases when it comes to music. If you think of health behaviors, you're going to think about getting a good night's sleep. So having great sleep hygiene, eating well, exercising regularly, all these things we do to live a healthier life. Well, why can't music do that? Music can do incredible things. Music can match our moods. Music can shift our mood. If we're feeling down and we want to come out of that, we can listen to a song that brings us out of that. Or if we're feeling whatever you might be feeling, whether it's happy or sad, you can use a song that you know to match that and really let you sit in that emotion. And music can do these incredible things. So why not start to think about music itself as a health behavior? And I thought, well, these things I'm sharing on TikTok, these little 60-second looping covers, I think this is doing just that. I started seeing these incredible things in the comment sections, and every video would get hundreds, if not thousands of comments. And people would say, this really brightened my day, or I woke up really sad this morning and this just made me so happy to see, or I cried throughout this whole video because it brought me back to the moment when I heard this in that TV show I loved and I'd forgotten about it. And just seeing people's incredible reactions to this music was quite something. And then we started to think about how our mission statement would evolve from there. And we've been having a lot of fun with TikTok, and I'd like to share one of our videos with you. And this is kind of a fun little thing I've been doing lately. This particular video has 4 layers, and it's called, guess the theme before the 4th layer. So if you just ignore the fact that there's a title on this for a half a second at the beginning, see if you can guess what theme this is before layer 4, but this is what we've been posting on TikTok quite a bit this past year. Okay, I wish I could do a show of hands and see how many people actually got that before layer 4. But that's just been a ton of fun for us to do that. And truly, the connections that we've made with people through these platforms have been incredible. And we've actually made friends through these videos, and we've built our Pulse community. And right now, I think we're sitting at about 284,000 followers on TikTok, which is awesome. And I think to myself, 10 years ago, I may have seen this on social media and thought, oh, what a sellout, just playing Harry Potter. But then I think, and I look at the stats for the videos now and I see, okay, well, I posted a 60-second video and 500,000 people have watched me play the cello for, 800,000 hours or something crazy like that. And I thought, that's incredible. That's community building. And it's not about me getting the views, but it's about bringing people together through music and having a shared online experience. We've since branched out to Instagram and continued to grow this community. And we decided to start 2 separate Instagram accounts, one for Pulse Music Media, which focuses more on the strictly music side of things, and one called Pulse Music Health, which allows SarahRose to share content more tailored towards music and health and well-being and stories of music therapy. And it's been fantastic for us because then it allows us to do our separate things and collaborate between the 2 accounts. So we're just trying to sort of grow the community through all the different social media channels. And we do believe that it fits under this umbrella of our greater goal, our changing and evolving mission statement of using music as a tool for connectivity and community building.
We're finding that our mission statement is shifting, but that feels like a very natural evolution based on the feedback we're getting from our growing community. We're also shifting the idea of community, which I'll talk about in a moment. And so we've moved from this idea of shifting the way you listen to music through these stories based in music and health contexts, like music therapy practice. And we're moving more towards creating a connective, collaborative community through music based on different people's experiences. Again, different people's musical autobiographies. Anyone who listens to a TikTok or sees a video on YouTube or attends one of our live performances has a story like we shared. And everything we do is still continuing to be rooted in this idea of music as a health behavior. So our platforms are shifting. They're growing in different ways. We're branching out, but we're always centered on the principles of music and health. the more we've branched out, the more our concept of community has shifted. And this word community is really important to us, but it's also ever changing. And I feel very inspired by the fact that we can grow with our community. We started out with kind of one vision, and we're finding that community is not just people who attend our shows, and we're very excited to get back to live music, but it also includes connecting with guest artists who are featured on our YouTube videos. So if you go to our YouTube page, you'll see a number of folks who are musicians in their own right, but perhaps not only music therapists. There's a picture of our friend, Dr. David Loach, who's a physician, but also a singer and a pianist, and we featured his story. And you'll see at the bottom left hand of the screen a number of institutions that we have collaborated with. So community is not even just person to person or group of people to group of people. It's institution to concept or institution to guest lecturer. This right now, this webinar that we're participating in with all of you is a manifestation of community. And I think that if you had asked us when we started this, and we started having these conversations in the earlier days, I don't know that we could have foreseen it growing in this way, but it's all the more rich to allow community to grow and stretch as we are learning so much more about what music can do to people. So it's been wonderful to partner with groups like the Canadian Opera Company, but also NASA reached out to Andrew on TikTok and said, hey, we love your stuff. Can you post a video for a very particular event that we're hosting? And can you collaborate with us in that way? And it's not mentioned here, but recently we've been partnering with groups like the Toronto Symphony Orchestra, like the University of Toronto's Faculty of Music, and various other groups that may or may not be rooted in music. So Warner Brothers isn't necessarily rooted in music, but they've reached out. And community can also mean hallway conversations. When I'm walking through a hallway in the hospital with my keyboard, it's like walking around with a puppy. Everyone wants to talk about it or comment on it or engage in some way. And that to me is a manifestation of community. So as long as for myself and for Andrew, if we keep coming to this idea of music as a health behavior that is a basic human right, it's a basic principle of existence, we think the possibilities are really endless. And what's wonderful is thinking about social media as a community. So I'll flip to the next slide here and give you this idea that through connecting via social media, we can actually reach out to so many more people than we ever would have imagined before. I think social media, of course, comes with a lot of pros and cons, but it's been really exciting to engage through things like the comment section or just seeing our followers grow or seeing people reshare because something about the song or the story or the image or the concept has connected with somebody's musical autobiography. And I'll just say this, when I talk about the musical history that each of us carry, those are all of the moments throughout our lives that have been impacted by music or punctuated by music or affected. So we carry this history with us. And then when someone plays that song or we hear it on a loudspeaker or we attend a concert, suddenly we are connected, right, to a part of ourselves and our musical past, but also to that performer on stage, to that recording over a loudspeaker, or to that post on Instagram. I'll flip it over to Andrew to talk a bit more about how we've engaged our followers.
I just want to say quickly that responding to comments and listeners and followers' ideas has been such an eye-opening experience. And it's something that I encourage every young musician that I teach to do when they want to do something, whether it's online or in person. I'll give you an example. On Instagram and on TikTok, we don't always succeed, but we try and respond to every single comment and every single direct message that we get. It's a little harder on TikTok when they get into the hundreds and thousands, but we try, because the way I see it, someone's taken the time to not scroll right through the video, but they've taken the time to watch it. Then they've taken the time to like it, to click that button. And then they've taken another 60 seconds or so to write a comment saying, I enjoyed this for this reason or that reason, or no reason at all, but just to write something to let us know that they've enjoyed it. And that to me is incredibly valuable, that people have taken that time out of their day to do that. So I think it would be a crime for me not to acknowledge that and respond as a musician who's trying to connect and trying to share. What a great opportunity for us to do that. So we do try and, respond and, what's the word I'm looking for? We try and develop each one of these relationships with all of our followers. And we want everyone to know that we appreciate them for watching and for liking and commenting. And that's just another take on this idea of community.
So as we begin to wrap up the more formal part of the webinar, we want to share a bit about our vision going forward, our hopes for music and health more broadly. We want to integrate this ecosystem that we've had to branch out of as a result of COVID, but also just sort of a natural evolution. We've had to build online platforms. We've had to stop live performances. But now, as things are slowly returning, yay, live music is coming back, we're excited to marry this ecosystem all together and to do things like guest lectures in school systems where young musicians and young people are learning about their own self-identity. And perhaps that can happen through music, engaging our followers in a live way, perhaps providing more of these stories, but doing more looping like Andrew's been doing on TikTok, because that's really taken off, or telling different styles of stories with different guest artists. So again, just trying to really diversify, but bring it all together as we return to the stage and using what we've learned to make things more relatable. I think at the end of the day, if we had to restate what's very important to us, one of the most important things is relatability. And then, as Andrew has mentioned so beautifully, connection. And at the heart of everything, we are guided by the fact that music is a fundamental component of health, and it can change the world. It is changing the world. All of the work done through Room 217 is a beautiful example of that. And music can change the world, not just in how we listen, but in how we educate about music and how we partner with communities through music and how we take care of our own health through music. So this is really what we're hoping to bring forward. And we'll leave you with a clip. We're excited to return to our roots. So I use this image again because it strikes me how many people engaged with us at this free event at the Canadian Opera Company that was a non-traditional opera offering. It was marketed as a music and health offering, and it was sold out. All of these, well, sold out, it was free, but all of these people wanted to come and attend. And this was, I think, the very first example we had of the power of music to bring community together from all walks of life, truly all ages. It was a really diverse crowd. And one of the most special moments is a clip that we're going to show you right now, which we think is the heart of what community is through Pulse. And we cannot wait to return to these roots through live performance.
Vibration and shared social experience creates a connective environment. It's why people go to the theater. It's why people go to the opera. It's why people go to concerts. We love that feeling. So if I begin singing a song that might be familiar to some of you, if I began to sing it and your brain went, I know that, and if I gently encouraged you to sing along with me, even if you don't sing, you're still feeling the vibrations from me, from the piano, this gorgeous piano I get to play, and from maybe your neighbor who knows this and really wants to sing. Don't think about it, just sing. When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. And in my hour of darkness, she is standing right in front of me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be.
The wonderful photographer, Sam Gates, in the background actually captured that moment of community, because these are folks who, a lot of them actually look quite panicked when I invited them to sing. And there was a bit of anxiety, but they started and then everyone joined in. And it was one of the most beautiful examples of community building through music, through familiarity. It doesn't have to be let it be, but in this particular instance, I was honored to be able to witness all of these people come together. And that is, I think, the heartbeat of Pulse. Thank you so much for attending. What a privilege it has been to share our story and share our narratives and share our music with this wonderful Room 217 community. And we encourage you to be in touch with us if you have further questions. But I think we have a couple of moments now. Check us out on any of the social media platforms you would like, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much for both of you. A very informative and moving presentation for sure. One of the questions that has sort of come forward is, how do you keep, no pun intended, but how do you keep a pulse on what the future will be? I think COVID's a great example that we're in a space that many of us couldn't have imagined, and the impact on the industry and what you're talking about. But how, moving forward, how do you keep your pulse on, what the future TikTok's, programs will be like, or how that's going to intersect with community? Do you have any insight or any inkling into how that's going to look?
I can speak to that from my end, and I can let SarahRose take it up after, but I do the thing that we talk a lot about in Pulse, which is I listen. I listen a ton. I do think about it from a business perspective as well. And boy, do I not know enough from the business side of things, but I am trying to learn every single day for the last year now. So I listen to what people are talking about. I listen and watch and try and see where trends are going before they become mainstream. It worked with TikTok because many people, myself included, just thought it was an app for teenagers to dance and listen to music and do karaoke on. And it turns out a year later, every brand in the world is on TikTok. And if you're not, you're behind, right? So what I look out for is, where is sort of energy going next? And there's a lot of talk of interesting things that are kind of scary to me still, like NFTs and cryptocurrency. And is that the future? And cryptocurrency is a really scary word for a lot of people. But the fact is that a lot of kids are growing up in an environment where it's normal. And in 20 years, it might be normal. And I don't want to be here in 20 years thinking, oh, I really should have paid attention 20 years ago during, when I spoke about it on that webinar. So I just try and listen, and I pretend I always know nothing. And so I can just constantly learn.
I will add, that's a great answer, Andrew, and a great question. Thank you, Don, for that. I find myself coming back to the clinical work as a music therapist as being the most grounding aspect of how I am guided. Because at the end of the day, when I'm sitting at the bedside with somebody who's telling me their story, that is the most authentic and most real inspiration I can draw on. And my patients, my clients are always my greatest teachers. So I find that if I can come back to their experiences and stay rooted in the frontline work, that really informs how I'm going to move forward.
If I could just actually pick up on what SarahRose just said, that's one of the cool things about the two of us is we bring such different, experience to this project. And people have been listening to and been affected by the Beatles since the early 1960s. That's 60 years ago. That's a long time ago. And that music is just as powerful today as it was then. And, at the core of our project, that is music, is this music that affects people. And I think no matter what platform you're on, that's really at the core of this whole project. And the business side of things is often just a big experiment, but the musical and connective side of things comes from SarahRose's experience as a music therapist and mine as a musician and performer.
Great. Well, thank you. Excellent answers. Before we go, I'm just wondering if anybody would mind, those of you that would you mind if we got a picture, if everybody turned their camera on, those that want to, and we could get a picture of everybody? If you're up for a picture, just turn your cameras on. Everybody in the call that would like to be part of that. Thank you for joining us. It's really great to see your audience too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I guess one last sort of, as we're waiting for people to turn their camera on, just SarahRose, what do you find that the 60-second or that these shorter clips in platforms like TikTok are limiting to the story sharing, or is it still possible?
Totally still possible. I think there's so much potential, and it's all how you tell the story. I think any length of time, obviously it shapes the story, but I think there's endless potential regardless of, it's just all in how you shape it and how you tell it. And music actually gets to the core of things so much faster. It's like you're fast tracking if you have music. So I think 60 seconds has a ton of potential.
I will say that's one of the fun challenges of social media, because, to create one piece of content and share it across 6 platforms is really a losing strategy. Like, they all have different things that make them special, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or YouTube, different lengths, different formats, different hooks. One of the fun things that we talk about a lot is, well, how do we adapt this to that platform and make it contextual so that the people that are on that platform and that, age category or whatever, like, will enjoy it as much as the people on that other platform. And that's a cool little puzzle we always talk about.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. And everybody, if we want to do a countdown from 3, 2, 1, and then maybe a wave or just a smile, just so we're not caught in the wrong pose. So ready? 3, 2, 1. And thank you, Tanya, for being our tech support. Thank you to SarahRose and Andrew, and for your tremendously impactful work. I can't wait to see you in the virtual world and maybe one day in the real one too. So thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you
everybody.
all.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining, and thanks so much for having us.
All the best, everyone. Take care.